Imagine it's your last day on earth. You're lying on your deathbed reflecting on your life. How do you feel? Do you feel overwhelmed with joy and gratitude for a life well lived? Or do you feel depressed, full of dismay, thinking about all the things that you could have done but never got around to? And how would you know if you've done the right things? What's the measure of a life well lived? These are all good questions to ask yourself, and my favorite definition of hell is on the last day on earth, the person that you became meets the person that you could have been. Now, the obvious thread to pull on from that is that we should seek to become the best versions of ourselves, which is what Abraham Maslow would call self-actualization, and I'm here to argue that self-actualization is the only worthy goal that we should pursue. But what actually is self-actualization, and how could you actually know if you were doing it? Well, let's start with the definition. Oxford Dictionary describes it as the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities, especially considered as a drive or need present in everyone. So we can start to break self-actualization down into a few key areas. Number one, the complete realization of your personal individual potential. Number two, the full development of all of your skills and abilities. And number three, the appreciation and gratitude for the experiences that you have throughout your life. It's also worth noting that it's considered as a drive or need that is present in everyone, but that not everyone achieves it, which basically means there's a whole bunch of people out there that are going to live that version of hell that I just described. And I want to help you to avoid that, but the problem with those definitions is that it's all about you, your abilities, your potential, your ability to feel gratitude for the experiences that you have, which also means that it's highly subjective, because whatever you think is the best version of your life could also be what somebody else thinks is going to be complete torture. And so we're left with an understanding that there's this kind of place or state that we can get to where we become the best versions of ourselves, where we feel joyous and in flow and enriched because we're living in our Dharma, but we're also left without a clear roadmap to get there. And the reason for that is very, very simple and also extremely important to understand, because you see, different values equal different goals. What's important to me might not be important to you, and therefore what looks like a good life to me might in fact not look like a good life to you. Because chasing $1 million sounds cool. It's also measurable, so we can easily see if we achieve that. But you'd have to ask yourself, why is that goal important to you? Helping 1 million people, that sounds cool too. And again, it's measurable and we can easily tick a box so we know when we've achieved that goal. But again, you would have to ask yourself, why is that goal important to you? Because you see, most of the goals that we set for ourselves, these yardsticks by which we try and measure whether or not we've had a successful life, have probably just been fed to you by whatever social media algorithm has been sending you information for the last few years. And they might look good and even sound good on paper, but will they lead you, individual, unique you, on the path of self-actualization? Or will they lead you to a dead-end path where even if you achieve the goal, you're left feeling barren and joyless and unfulfilled because none of it had any meaning to you anyway? And so I encourage you to think about your goals and ask why. Why is this important to me? And then I want you to dig a little deeper. You see, if you can start to understand the why behind the why, you're going to find out that either the goals that you've set are completely meaningless to you and should probably just be thrown in the bin, or in fact, maybe, just maybe, you have actually chosen the right goals for you that are going to lead you on the path of self-actualization, which is obviously what we all want to aim for. Now, let me be clear, I'm on this journey of discovery as well. And up until recently, I had big goals of becoming a billionaire, having a fleet of super yachts, having a fleet of private jets, all of this kind of stuff. I was even dreaming of buying a private island, really. And to be fair, these big aspirations were really useful. They pumped me full of dopamine and helped me move further along the path that I'm currently on, and for that I am very, very grateful. But earlier this year, I had what the Japanese would call a satori, an awakening. I started asking myself these questions. Why do I want $1 billion? What's that actually going to do for me? Why is that important? And do I actually want to live the life that would be required for me to achieve that goal? Is that the thing that is going to make me feel fulfilled, that I'm going to look back on at the end of my life and think, wow, I'm so glad you did that, versus any number of other experiences that I could have that could lead me on a path of fulfillment? I started imagining myself sitting on my super yacht, and I was thinking, what am I actually going to be doing? You see, I don't drink, don't have parties, so that kind of function is gone. And sure, it's cool, I can sail it from one place to the next, but the reality is I can just buy a plane ticket and do that now anyway. So what's the real function? Kind of sounded boring to me, and I started to realize that maybe that actually wasn't what I was looking for. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't not want those things. They would absolutely be nice, but I realized that chasing those things were probably not going to be the specific outcomes that would lead me to realize that I've had a fulfilled life and existence. And I started to realize that most of the things I've been pegging my self-worth on were empty, vacuous, status signaling goals. Big things that I could hang my hat on and say, look, I'm a success. Which probably would have been great if status was one of my core values, but it isn't. And my point here isn't to tell you to lower your ambitions. Absolutely not at all. If you want to build $1 billion company, then go for it. Just make sure you're asking yourself why. Why is that important to you? And is that going to lead you on a path of self-actualization or not? Are you going to get to that destination and then realize that it was never worth it at all anyway, and you've just wasted your life? You only have one life. So these are big stakes. My point here is that there are so many different ways that you can define success, and your goal should be to actually find the way that is most closely linked with your core intrinsic values. And And then once you've worked out what that looks like, then you should be wildly ambitious and pursue the absolute zenith of success that you can in whatever good looks like to you. And if success to you looks like having a nap every single afternoon, well then damn it, when you nap, you should be napping like a champion. But it's also important to remember that while self-actualization is the goal, it's also not the first step. In fact, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there are stages that you need to pass through before you can arrive. And so if you're still in survival mode, trying to work out how to find food, water, shelter, cover your basic security needs, then you've got to deal with that first, because there's no point you trying to work out what the best version of your life looks like if you're going to starve to death or if you've got no place to live. But as you move through the different stages, you create the capability to ask yourself, what is life all about? Why am I here, and what does good look like to me? And it's right around stage 3, love and relationships or belonging, where you should really start thinking about your core values. Because you see, your core values will help you to identify the types of people you should be spending your time with. Because your friends, your family, your relationships are all going to be the biggest indicator of how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, your self-worth. And this is going to be the springboard that you need in order to progress on the path of self-actualization. And from there, your values will determine what types of goals you should be setting in order to become the most actualized version of yourself. For example, if status actually is one of your core values, which it's not for me, but it might be for you, then maybe chasing money and cars and big houses and all of this and fancy clothes and all this kind of stuff, maybe that really is going to be the thing that is going to make you feel enriched. Or maybe selflessness is one of your core values, and therefore maybe pursuing something in charity or helping other people or service is going to be the thing that makes you truly happy with your life. Or perhaps your core values include curiosity and adventure. So maybe you'd be happier just backpacking around the world, living in hostels and reading books and experiencing all the adventure the world has to offer. Maybe that's going to be what good looks like to you. And of course, maybe family is one of your core values, and that's going to dictate how you want to structure your life and how close you want to be to the people in your family and whether or not you even want to create a family. And these are all really important things for us to be thinking about when we try and design what is my ideal life. How am I going to make sure that when I get to the end of my life, I'm going to be satisfied that I've lived in line with my values and I've become the absolute best version of myself. Now, of course, it's worth noting that you can do all of these things. You can make heaps of money, you can travel the world and have adventures, you can give to charity and even participate in charity, and you can have a great family life as well. These things aren't mutually exclusive, but the point here is to work out what are the things that you're going to prioritize above all else. When the chips are down, when push comes to shove, what are the things that matter most to you? Because these are the things that truly matter to you. The things that when you get to your last day, you're going to be most grateful that you took the time to invest deeply in. The things by which you will weigh yourself to know, have I become the best version of myself, and have I had a life well lived? All of the rest, they're extras, accoutrements, entrees and hors d'oeuvres in the smorgasbord of life. And so if values really are the determinants of what makes a good life, how can we actually work out what our values are? Reflect on some past experiences. Think about the things that you've done that have brought you the most joy in your life, where you've experienced the most amount of happiness, the most amount of satisfaction. What common themes did they have? Were they times where you were climbing a mountain? Were they times where you were helping others? So here are some things you can do to uncover your core values and to take you on the path to self-actualization. So step number 1 is to reflect on past experiences. Think about all of the things you've done that have brought you an extreme amount of joy and happiness, and also think about all of the things that you didn't like, because they will be an indicator of the types of things that you don't want to do in your life. But think about the things that have brought you the most happiness and joy. Are they the times where you were overcoming a big challenge or learning a new skill or giving back to others? Or was it when you got a big bonus? What are these things? Start to try and identify the things that have already happened in your life that point to the kinds of things that are important to you. This is going to start to give you an indication of where your core values really lie. Another thing you can do is values assessment exercises. Now, there are loads of ways to do this. You can do these online. There's all kinds of different tools for it. You can use card sorting exercises where they have a whole bunch of different values on cards and you stack rank them, try and find what's important to you. You can also do a values journal where you can reflect daily on the things that matter most to you and start to work it out that way. One of the best methods that I've found is to use Dr. John Demartini's values determination method. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And by the way, another thing you can do is to imagine your ideal future. What are you doing? How are you spending your time? Who are you spending the time with? Start to imagine what the best version of your life would look like, and then you can start to identify what those things are and why they are important to you. Think about things like, what are you doing? Who are you with? And how are you feeling when you are doing those things? Because remember, I had this idea that I wanted a super yacht, but then when I actually thought that through and I was like, who would I be with? What would I be doing? And how would I be feeling? I started to realize that maybe they weren't the things that I wanted. So take the time to go into that vision of the future and then analyze, will this actually fulfill me? Or is this just an imaginary vision of what I think good should look like. Another thing you can do is to practice mindfulness, and the way you can do that is to do journaling. So as you probably know, if you've watched any of my content, I do this every single day. I wake up and I spend time on my vision, my goals, thinking about where I'm at in life. This actually helps me to stay aligned with my values and where I am going. You can do other things like meditation and all kinds of different work, but the goal here is to try and understand what is happening in your mind and what is important to you. So taking the time to give yourself some space to consider. Journaling things out is actually going to help you to process your thoughts and ideas and get things onto the page. And that is going to help you to give you the clarity that you need to get to where you want to get to. And another thing you can do is to identify roles and mentors, people that have created prototypes of the life that you may think that you want. Now, one of my favorite quotes from Gary Keller, who's one of the authors of a book called The One Thing, is to choose your prophets, Prophets, prophets. And what he means by that is that you may idolize someone for one area of their life. So for example, maybe there's a billionaire that you look up to because you think, wow, look at them, they're so successful at making lots of money and I aspire to be that. But maybe have a look at the rest of their life. Are they healthy? Are they happy? Have they got a good relationship? The things that matter to you, perhaps they are not that good at. And so you need to make sure that you are modeling the right types of people in the right ways and choosing your mentors and choosing your inspirations correctly to make sure that the kinds of people that you are trying to model actually have the kind of life that you actually want. And this is a really important thing to do because sometimes we can get caught up in the hype and we can chase the wrong vision of the future. But the benefit of looking at role models and mentors and influencers is you can actually kind of take a look and try and work out, do they live the kind of life that I actually want to live? And is that important to me? Or do I want something different? So for example, I had the opportunity to meet Grant Cardone. He's been a big idol of mine for a really long period of time, and he's been a massively influential figure in my life. But when I met him, when I got close to him, and when I got into that inner circle, it was a great eye-opening moment for me where I suddenly realized, oh, this isn't necessarily the life that I want to strive for, which was great and fantastic for me. And I still have a huge amount of respect for Grant Cardone. But for me, that was an eye-opening moment where I realized that I didn't want what he had, which helped me to then think about what is it that I want. Now, all of this is a process. It's going to take time, and it's not going to be a quick one and done exercise. In fact, you're going to need to continuously go back and continue to review these types of things until you can get clear on what is important to you. And there's 3 things that you need to be prepared for when you get started on this. Number 1, it's not a quick process. Number 2, you're probably going to get it wrong in the first instance, and that is okay because you haven't taken the time to do this before. It's got to be an iterative process over time. And number 3, your values and therefore your goals will change over time as you continue to experience what this looks like on the journey of self-actualization as you continue along that path. Because you see, continuously assessing your values and how closely you are aligned to them is a lifelong pursuit. And in this way, it's essentially the embodiment of self-actualization because it is an ongoing process, what the Japanese would call Kaizen, a process of continuous improvement to continually refine and find that edge to discover what is the best version of you, what is the best version of your life. But it is only through this process that we can plant the seeds of joy and happiness and watch them grow, and we can start to live our best life. A life where you feel happy, whole, fulfilled, where you've become the best version of yourself, and therefore you can show up and be the best person for the people around you and the world around you, where you've finally built a life based on all the things that matter most to you. That sounds like self-actualization to me. And all of that sounds to me like a pretty good way to live, which is why I believe that self-actualization is the only truly worthy goal that we can pursue. Now, I hope this video has been valuable to you, and if it has, then I'd love for you to share it with someone who you think might get value out of it, or subscribe, or leave a comment, or in fact, you can do all 3. And if you want ideas like this delivered direct to your inbox, then there's a link in the description where you can sign up for my newsletter. Until next time, stay awesome, stay powerful, and we'll see you soon.